Have you ever wondered where the fearsome Yautja, more commonly known as predators, originated from? Our story takes us back to Yautja Prime, the cradle of the Yautja civilization, a world where these advanced beings first emerged and thrived. But what if I were to reveal that the Yautja, who would later be known and would become predators, were not initially the aggressive hunters we've come to associate them with? In their earlier existence, they were more humanoid in appearance and belonged to a relatively scientific and advanced society. As a Class II civilization on the Kardashev scale, they had mastered the harnessing of solar energy and possessed the capability to traverse the vast expanses of interstellar space. Contrary to their later reputation, the Yautja were not driven by a primal instinct to hunt, but rather by a scientific curiosity and a commitment to understanding the universe. Their society was marked by advancements in technology, prominently featuring sophisticated cloaking technology and plasma weapons designed primarily for defense rather than aggression. Enter the engineers. Scarce information exists regarding the origin of these space jockeys, but it is evident that they are a species of conquerors with advanced technology and a mastery of bioengineering, displaying minimal regard for other life forms. The categorization of the engineers as either a Type II or Type III civilization remains speculative. A Type II civilization would have the capability to harness the energy of entire star systems, while a Type III civilization could travel across galaxies and manipulate and use multiple energy sources, including dark energy and black holes. The engineers' mastery over such cosmic energies remains uncertain, leaving their technological classification open to speculation. Their eyes fell upon Yautja Prime, a jewel they sought to add to their collection. The engineers were not deterred by the Yautja's advanced defenses or their plasma and rare metal weaponry. They were driven by their motives, by their desire to control, to conquer. But the Yautja were not a race to be trifled with. Their advanced technology and defenses were not just for show. When the engineers made their first attempt to seize control of Yautja Prime, they were met with a resistance that was fierce and unyielding. The Yautja, using their superior technology, were able to push back the engineers, thwarting their initial attempt at conquest. This was a significant blow to the engineers, who had underestimated the Yautja's strength and resilience. This was only a setback in the eyes of the engineers and fueled their desire to conquer Yautja Prime even more. They knew they had to come up with a different strategy, a sinister plan that would give them the upper hand in their next attempt. The engineers' first attempt was a failure, but this was only the beginning of their relentless pursuit. Their determination to conquer Yautja Prime would lead them down a path that would forever change the course of the Yautja civilization. They devise a plan so devious, so insidious, that it would change the very nature of their opponents. This would prove just how insignificant sentient life meant to the engineers. The engineers, after facing a setback at the hands of the Yautja, resorted to a weapon of biowarfare, a pathogen known as 91-15, or more ominously, the black goo. This was no ordinary weapon. It was designed to cleanse planets of any non-botanical life forms that the engineers deemed unwanted, a twisted form of cosmic gardening, if you will. The question arises as to whether the engineers had already developed the pathogen or if its creation was a response to the setbacks they faced at the hands of the Yautja, later repurposed for the conquest of other planets. So how does this black goo work? Well, it's a mutagenic virus, but not like any virus you or I have ever encountered. Once exposed to an organism, the pathogen has three known effects. It kills incompatible hosts outright, a swift and brutal end. But for those it deems compatible, it's a far crueler fate. The compatible hosts are mutated into highly aggressive monsters known as anathema or abominations. But that's not all. The virus can also gestate a parasitic organism within them. Once released, can get into a second host. This leads to the gestation of a hybridized predatory organism known as a neomorph. It's a terrifying cycle of death and rebirth, all designed to create the perfect killing machine. A widely held belief suggests that the black goo contains elements of engineered DNA, possibly undergoing multiple versions. This notion gains traction when observing the engineers seeding primordial Earth in Prometheus. Whether this act was intentional or not, and how many times have they undergone genetic modifications, is a topic for another discussion, one that we can explore in a separate video. When the engineers unleashed this pathogen on Yautja Prime, the results were catastrophic. The Yautja, despite their advanced technology and defenses, were helpless against the black goo. They suffered severe mutations, becoming more aggressive and less intellectual. It was a transformation that would forever change the course of their race. However, the mutations weren't all detrimental. The Yautja became bigger, stronger, and more durable in battle. Yes, they lost some of their intellect, halting the creation of new technology, but they were still able to use the technology they had developed before the mutations and modify it, like their cloaking abilities and plasma weapons. The engineers' plan had worked, but not as they had anticipated. Their weapon of mass genocide had not wiped out the Yautja, but instead had created a new breed of predator, one that was bigger, stronger, and more fearsome than ever before. The Yautja had always been a technological force, but now they were bigger, stronger, and more durable. Experiencing a loss of color vision, the predators now perceived the world solely in infrared. Notably, their mouths have transformed, featuring dynamic mandibles and protruding fangs, and their skin has taken on a reptilian texture, even changing their blood to a green color. While their aggression has significantly intensified, they have not devolved into mindless killing machines as observed in humans. Instead, they have harnessed this heightened aggression to establish a society of hunters, complete with hierarchical structures where the strongest surviving hunters ascend to the pinnacle of the predator ladder. The mutations had taken their toll on their intellect. Their ability to create new technology was halted. But they retained the knowledge to use of their existing technology and modify it. Their cloaking abilities, their plasma weapons, these were still at their disposal. The Yautja, despite their mutation, despite their loss, were still in control. They were fighters, survivors, a race not easily brought to its knees. The engineers had underestimated them. They had thought the mutations would make the Yautja weak, that the loss of intellect would make them vulnerable. But they were wrong. The Yautja were not victims of the black goo. They were its conquerors. They had taken the engineer's weapon and made it their own, turning themselves into a new breed of warriors. The Yautja had become a new breed of predator, but their battle was far from over. They were ready for whatever the engineers would throw at them next. They had faced the worst and survived. They were the mutated Yautja predators, stronger, bigger, and more fearsome than ever before, and they were ready to fight. How far will a race go to conquer another? The engineers, in their relentless pursuit of Yautja Prime, would they decide to launch a second attempt on the predators? Stay tuned for part 2, where we will discuss the xenomorphs, why the engineers' DNA is so special, and the connection to Earth and the real reason they often visited. Share, like, and subscribe for more content, and leave a comment below if you think the engineers have genetically modified their own DNA and have acquired ancient technology from conquering many worlds.